Article 27, Location. Canon 1575. A location is a fictional form created through the combined action of a valid survey by succession and registration in relation to one unique dimension of temporal space in relation to neighboring space. Canon 1576. Valid survey by succession is the principle that a survey cannot be true to describing a particular dimension of temporal space in relation to neighboring space if it does not belong by succession to a hierarchy of valid survey from the absolute to a particular cadastral survey. Canon 1577. Any survey unable to prove its membership to a hierarchy of succession of a detailed survey from a particular cadastral location to the absolute is automatically invalid, including any and all associated land title, rights, claims, contracts, and agreements. Canon 1578. Registration of a valid location is when a valid survey is registered in the Great Register of one heaven as the one true and accurate survey of a cadastral location. Canon 1579. Any valid survey of a particular cadastral location that is not properly registered into the Great Register of one heaven is automatically invalid, including any and all associated land title, rights, claims, contracts, and agreements. Canon 1580. There are only seven valid forms of location: absolute, universal, galactic, stellar, planetary, terrestrial, and cadastre. Canon 1581. An absolute location is a valid survey and registration of the primary location of all locations being the one, the absolute, and the unique collective awareness as defined by these canons and specifically the canons of divine law and natural law. By these canons, there is only one possible absolute location. Canon 1582. A universal location is a valid survey by succession and registration of a sub-location within the surveyed absolute location representing a region of the universe larger than a galaxy as defined by the canons and the Hokkaidan knowledge indexes. Canon 1583. A galactic location is a valid survey by succession and registration of a galactic location within the surveyed universal location representing a valid galaxy as defined by the canons and the Hokkaidan knowledge indexes. Canon 1584. A stellar location is a valid survey by succession and registration of a stellar, sun, location within a surveyed galactic location representing a valid star system as defined by the canons and the Hokkaidan knowledge indexes. Canon 1585. A planetary location is a valid survey by succession and registration of a planetary location within a surveyed stellar, sun, location representing a valid planet as defined by the canons and the Hokkaidan knowledge indexes. Canon 1586. A terrestrial location is a valid survey by succession and registration of the entire terrestrial land mass of a planet, including its method of survey as defined by the canons and the Hokkaidan knowledge indexes. Canon 1587. A cadastral location is a valid registration through succession of a surveyed and marked out tract of land, claim, or settlement in relation to other neighboring landmarks and locations within a valid registered terrestrial land survey. Canon 1588. A valid location is not realty, real property, until properly conveyed into a superior trust. Article 28, Divine Person. Canon 1589. A divine person is the purely divine spirit person recorded and enrolled in the Great Roll of Divine Persons associated with a divine trust registered with the Great Register and Public Record of one heaven and formed in accord with the sacred covenant Pactum de Singularis Coelum by the divine Creator into which the form of divine spirit, energy, and rights are conveyed. A divine person possesses the greatest and highest powers and authority of all possible types of persons. Canon 1590. A divine person is created from the consent and enrollment of a record within the Great Roll of Divine Persons, also known as the Great Register and Public Record of One Heaven. A divine trust is formed when a divine immortal spirit, being part of the divine, agrees with the intention of the collective divine known as unique collective awareness to be recognized as a unique member of the divine in accord with the sacred covenant Pactum De Singulis Caelum. Into the divine trust is then placed one unit of pure awareness representing one unique divine immortal spirit and mind, one unit of awareness representing the unique experience of form and motion, energy, of creation, and connection. To form in one unit representing all unique awareness of experience of unique form and motion as the divine form. Canon 1591. In accord with the most sacred covenant Pactum De Singulis Caelum and the consent of all members, original first, ecclesiastical, lawful and legal title is granted in perpetuity to the divine temple, also known as the treasury of one heaven and the unique collective awareness of divine mind, also known as divina, as spiritual trustees for the proper protection, safety, well-being, management and enjoyment of the affairs and needs of all divine persons. Canon 1592. As existence of the universe depends upon the consent of each and every divine immortal spirit and their associated divine person, the proof of the continued existence of the universe is evidence of complete and willing consent of all divine spirit persons as members of one heaven. The divine person is therefore the first person, the highest person, the perfected person from which all other lesser persons derive their consent and authority. Article 29, True Person. Canon 1593. A true person is recorded and enrolled in the Great Roll of True Persons associated with a true trust, registered with the Great Register and Public Record of One Heaven on Earth, and formed when an associated divine trust and divine person already exists and there is a lawful conveyance of divine rights of use and purpose, known as divinity, to the true trust associated with then the birth and existence of a living level 6 higher order life form. A true person is the second highest possible form of person. Canon 1594. A true person of a true trust formed from when the executors and administrators of the associated divine trust agrees to gift, grant and convey divine rights of use, also known as divinity, into the true trust. A true person can only be formed when an associated divine trust is already in existence. Canon 1595. A true person is owned by the true trust, which in turn is administered by the executor of the trust, being the mind and brain, and trustee being the flesh, in accordance with the sacred covenant Pactum De Singulis Caelum. No other lesser trusts, lesser inferior persons can claim ownership, liens, seizures, enforcements, or other unlawful acts against a true person. Canon 1596. When a valid registration number from the Great Register is redeemed as the recognition of the existence of a divine person, the associated divine immortal spirit consents and agrees in true trust to ensure the society of one heaven, administers the rights and obligations of the member as trustee. Canon 1597. Proof of the existence of a true person and true trust is through the issue of a valid life-born record as a divine immortal spiritual being expressed into a flesh vessel. Canon 1598. Any life birth record within an inferior Roman system which issues a unique number for the flesh of a baby may also be taken as proof of the existence of a true trust and the inferiority of any inferior Roman person as proof of the existence of the flesh is proof of the existence of the divine immortal spirit. Article 30, Superior Person. Canon 1599. A superior person is recorded and enrolled in the Great Roll of a valid Okadiah society associated with a superior trust registered with the Great Register and Public Record of a valid Okadiah society, and formed when an associated true trust and true person already exists and there is a lawful conveyance of first right of use and purpose, known as realty to a superior trust associated with the birth of a service or agreement associated with the membership of a true person to a valid Vocadaya society. A superior person is the third highest possible form of person. Canon 1600. An office is the normal term given to a most sacred position of status and title given life and legal personality of its own to which certain special powers are then bestowed. Canon 1601. Only six forms of superior person by status are valid: supreme, superior, ordinary, curator, novice and inferior. Canon 1602. Only 432 most sacred and ancient official positions are recognized as being permitted to hold any powers and authority by the Society of One Heaven as an office. Canon 1603. A supreme officer, also known as a supreme person, is an official person defined by an unique article within Pactum de Singularis Coelum. A supreme person is the highest form of person, and is also known as an official person. Canon 1604. If any aggregate, entity, association or other body claims equal or superior status to a supreme person and is not associated with the sacred covenant Pactum de Singularis Coelum or 7 sacred pronouncements of Vocadaya, then such a claim is contrary to the prescripts of divine canon law and is therefore reprobate, suppressed and not permitted to be revived, including any deeds, covenants or other agreements based upon such false claims. Canon 1605. A superior officer, also known as a superior person and superior, is any official person defined by unique article within the three sacred covenants Pactum de Singularis Fide, Pactum de Singularis Islam or Pactum de Singularis Spiritus or the seven foundation union charters including Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Globus, Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Africans, Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Arabia, Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Americas, Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Asia, Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Europa and Cardi Sacrorum de Congregatio Oceania. A superior is the second highest form of official person. Superior officers are the most senior executive administrators of juridic persons excluding those already identified as supreme officers. Canon 1606. If any aggregate, entity, association or other body claims equal or superior status to a superior person and is not associated with the sacred covenant Pactum de Singularis Coelum or 7 sacred pronouncements of Vocadaya, then such a claim is contrary to the prescripts of divine canon law and is therefore reprobate, suppressed and not permitted to be revived, including any deeds, covenants or other agreements based upon such false claims. Canon 1607. An ordinary officer, also known as either an ordinary person or ordinary, is the third highest form of official person. An ordinary is formed by any charter or code of law created in accordance with these sacred canons who has not previously been named as either a superior or supreme person. Ordinary officers are senior officials and are superior to juridic persons. Canon 1608. If any aggregate, entity, association or other body claims equal or superior status to an ordinary person and is not associated with the sacred covenant Pactum de Singularis Coelum or 7 sacred pronouncements of Vocadaya, then such a claim is contrary to the prescripts of divine canon law and is therefore reprobate, suppressed and not permitted to be revived, including any deeds, covenants or other agreements based upon such false claims. Canon 1609. A curator officer, also known as a curator person and curator, is the fourth highest form of official person. A curator is formed by any statute created in accordance with these sacred canons and not previously named as either a superior, supreme, or ordinary person. A curator is a manager official within a juridic person. Canon 1610. A novice officer, also known as novice, is the fifth highest form of official person. A novice is formed by any statute or ordinance created in accordance with these sacred canons and not previously named as either a superior, supreme, ordinary or curator person. A novice is a junior or probationary official within a valid juridic person. Canon 1611. An inferior officer is any officer appointed through the statutes of an inferior juridic person under Roman law, Talmudic law, or some other inferior form of law. Canon 1612. An inferior officer by claiming inferior form of law as the basis of their legitimacy automatically consents to being considered the lowest form of official person. Therefore an inferior officer can never be considered higher than a curator, ordinary, superior or supreme officer. Canon 1613. Any statute that claims an inferior officer of an inferior form of law to be equal or superior to a curator, ordinary, superior or supreme officer is automatically null and void from the beginning, including any and all associated deeds, contracts, agreements. Article 31. Inferior person. Canon 1614. An inferior person or Roman person is a person first created through a recording and enrollment in a roll defined by Western Roman statutes of law, or Roman body of law, or associated courts, tribunals and forums. Inferior persons are the lowest standing and weakest of all valid forms of persons. An inferior person can never be validly, legitimately, reasonably, logically, legally, lawfully or morally claimed or argued as superior to a superior person. Canon 1615. An inferior person, such as a Roman person, is a person created by the legal spell curse system of the former Roman cult and those rebel forces refusing to acknowledge the supremacy of the sacred covenant Pactum De Singularus Coelum, whereby such outlaws continue to falsely claim ultimate ownership not only of the person, but associated flesh, mind, and soul. Canon 1616. An inferior person is by its very definition inferior to an official person, which is lesser in standing than a true person, which is lesser in standing than a divine person. An inferior person can never be considered superior to a divine person. Therefore, no law based in inferior persons can ever be lawfully considered equal or higher than these canons. Canon 1617. As every man, woman, and higher order spirit is granted a divine person in accordance with the sacred covenant Pactum De Singularus Coelum, excluding the conditions of necessity, when a man or woman willingly chooses to be associated with an inferior person such as an inferior Roman person or Roman slave, such demonstration of distortion of reality, lack of ability of reasoning and logic is grounds to declare such a man or woman through their inferior person as incompetent. Canon 1618. Where a man or woman through their inferior person is lawfully declared incompetent, the Society of One Heaven or the nominated Hokkaidan Society shall lawfully assume full power as guardian and executor or administrator for the inferior person,